What is up, everybody? We are back with another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com, and it is the final of the 3 nights of PFL pay-per-views for 2022. It's Professional Fighters League 9 2022, the playoffs, coming to you from the famed even Copperbox Arena in London, England, on August 20th of our year of the Lord 2022. And do you know what? It's been a pretty good year for the PFL so far. I'll probably do a recap of that before the finals come on and go through it. I did a recap of the regular season already, and we'll talk about this again when all the fights are through. But it's obviously a big time for PFL and a very interesting time for PFL. Moving into Wales and London, and my side of the world hopefully will be we'll have an Irish card before too long, and there's Irish guys sign, and we see some English people. Actually heard a couple of rumours of a couple of names as well. Maybe by the time this video comes out they might be official, but they're looking at the big name up and coming English and Irish prospects, I suppose, like obviously Brendan Loughnane has been there for a while, Will Fleury, Nathan Kelly, Ben Ellis, and others as well. And obviously, they're looking at maybe the names that have been around for maybe longer, even like say Myles Price fighting in the upcoming card, but others as well. So I'm sure we'll see some of them maybe signed to PFL before their next few fights, and maybe we'll see announcements of upcoming dates and stuff like that as well. So it's a very interesting time for PFL worldwide, but for my side of the world, it's a big time for the PFL, and very, very interesting. Obviously, Wales last week and England this week as well. It'll be interesting to see how it all works, because the smart cage, and when it's the graphics up on screen, it's all very American, really, and for it to come over to this side of the world, I suppose, let's say obviously we saw and we will see going forward, but I'll talk about maybe in the full preview or the full review even of the playoffs and of the season itself. But let's talk, I suppose, a little bit about this card. This week we have the playoffs with the women's lightweights and the men's featherweights as well. We have some local talent also on the card, and a few of the people who were on PFL's regular season and are getting another chance here. Let me run you through some of I suppose some of the undercard fighters first, and some of the fights there. We have, and as I record this as well, I've heard rumours there are like 1 or 2 fights to be added, so maybe by the time this comes out there'll be 1 or 2 further, but keep an eye obviously on Sherdog.com. Let's get updated all the time. Louie Sutherland kicking it off in a heavyweight fight against Abraham Babley. Babley is 1-0, fighting out of Manchester top team. He made his debut back last year, but he's a very good amateur record as well. 4-0 as an amateur, but that Manchester top team have, there's a pretty good gym there. I think Davy Grant trains a little bit out of there, Leron Murphy and others as well. So that's, that's a pretty good gym there. Louie Sutherland, more experienced in as a heavyweight. He has fought 4 times, and he's 4-0 with all 4 KOs in the first round there, and 1 amateur win as well. So that's an interesting one to kick off the card. Ali Taleb, 7-0 in the bantamweight division. Then I see a few bantamweights. We talked about that last week and the week before as well, I believe. A few bantamweights coming up, but he's a Swedish fighter. As I said, 7-0, made his debut back in 2019, and obviously during the pandemic between August 2019 and March 2021, he'd only 1 fight in both of those days, but 1 fight in the middle as well. So in 2021 he had 3 fights, and this is going to be his 3rd fight of 2022 as well, which is a lot of experience, I suppose, in a very, very short time. A lot of amateur experience as well, fighting since back in 2015 there. His opponent is out of Sweden, Kenji Bortoluzzi, whose name I absolutely butchered there. He is 11-4 with a good bit of experience. He's fought Luca Ivine, who I suppose people would know his name from the scene around here. Made his debut all the way back in 2013, so he's been around for a long while. 5 submission wins there, 2 knockouts in his 11 wins. Been knocked out 4 times as well. And I suppose when you look at Taleb's record, four knockouts in his 7 fights, he'll probably be looking for that, I'm sure, here on the weekend. There's some up-and-comers then kind of on the card as well. Theo Odunjo against Magnus Iversen, and Dakota Ditcheva in the flyweight division against Hassna Gaber. Ditcheva, I suppose, is a name maybe you'd know as well. She is... I heard a lot about her coming through, fighting out a Manchester top team as well. She fought over in UAE Warriors and the local Cage Steel show in the UK as well. She only made her debut back in 2011. She's actually win over Shauna Bannon. And that's where I have heard of her from. Shauna Bannon is now signed for Invicta. She was, I work over in Severe MMA as well. She was the Severe MMA Irish Amateur of the Year in 2020. Despite that, she came through and I think she won 5 amateur fights or something like that after that. So, in 2021, even she had a baby shortly after that, and she came back and she's had a great win. But she's very, very talented, and the fact that Ditcheva has beaten her, tells a lot. So she's definitely a very, very good prospect to keep an eye on. She has beaten some of the best up and comers, I suppose, already. So a good signing there for the PFL. Simeon Powell as well is another name you've heard of. He's fighting Nemanja Uveric. Powell is fighting out of the Titan gym. He's 6-0 with 5 finishes, 3 knockouts, 2 submissions. His opponent, I suppose, 11-5, fighting out of Serbia. Wouldn't know him maybe as well, but he's on a 5-fight win streak, having made his debut all the way back in 2010, so a lot more experience. He's fought Bojan Velojevic, who's been in the UFC and other places. If I'm not mistaken, he's fought in the PFL a good few times, and he has been in the UFC as well. Fought Darren Till amongst others as well. So that's a big move forward for Simeon Powell in his career. That Titan fighter gym as well, a pretty good gym, so we'll see how he gets on in that one as well. And then we come maybe to the higher up fights. Stuart Austin is fighting Sofiane Boukichou. I was looking through the card there last night. I was like, Sofiane Boukichou, why do I know that name? And I looked up, I was like, oh yeah, that's why I know that name. He's been fighting around for a long time, but he hasn't come across my radar in a while. He's been fighting out in UAE Warriors there, but I suppose he's probably best known if you're tuning in here from the United States. He fought Rugrug back in 2019 and lost that fight, and it was the big win, for Rugrug, and really kind of put him on the stage, I suppose. Before that, he'd fought Tom Aspinall, so that's 2 tough fights in a row. He fought Aspinall in February and Rugrug in December. But he's a very, very good fighter. I thought it was a good test at the time for Rugrug. 4 submissions in his 9 wins, 3 decisions, won one by TKO. There's an other in there as well. What's that other? I need to find that out now. Disqualification. Okay, he won by Fishhook in UAE Warriors. But he's a big, tall, long, 6'3" guy, and he's fighting Stuart Austin here. Honestly, I would pick him to win this fight against Stuart Austin. Stuart Austin as well has also fought and beaten Tom Aspinall. So that's that's an interesting one. But that was back in 2015 at Bama by a submission. I think Tom Aspinall's got his black belt since then, if I'm not mistaken, hasn't he? But he's fought a lot of guys. He's fought Johnny Walker and Dalsheli Gambula and others as well, but his last 2 in a row in PFL. He's only 2 in PFL. He's lost both of them to Hinan Ferreira in 31 seconds and Bruno Capiloza in 4 minutes 24. Now, there's an argument that those 2 lads are, the 2 best heavyweights, if not, 2 of the top 3. So there's no shame, I suppose, in losing those fights. But I would favour Boukichou in that fight. I haven't seen him now in a couple of years, but I do like him. I think he's a good fighter. He's a good style, and I think he'll have like Stuart Austin. he's not the best striker in the world. When the fight gets to the ground, he's a good wrestler, and if he can get it to the ground, he's good there. But I think he'll have problems on the feet. But look, this is the start of the fight as well. It could go out to the ground. Both of them like to fight in the ground. If it does go there, it probably will be fun. So let's maybe hope that happens for the sake of the fight itself in this one. Then we've Marcin Held versus actually before that as well. There's Alexis Shivots. His opponent here in Turkey isn't here yet. Maybe by the time this comes out, he'll be there. But he's 9-1, fighting out of Riga in Latvia. A very, very good prospect, it looks like. Hasn't lost since 2017. Has been on a good run, fighting around the Baltics, I suppose you would call it. Hasn't fought now since last September, so this is a big opportunity for him to get back in there. As I said, 9-1, 6 knockouts, 2 submissions, only one fight have gone to a decision. So look, the PFL, if you look at it, there's guys from Sweden, guys from Switzerland, guys from Ireland, England, Wales being signed here. It's a very interesting time. We started off as the World Series of Fighting, and it seems like it is a genuine World Series of Fighting now, because there's lads from all over the world fighting here, and he's another one, so that should be very interesting. Then we've Marcin Held versus Myles Price, which is a fantastic fight. You could say a lot about Myles Price, but God almighty, this guy is taking hard fights. Marcin Held, Jeremy Stephens last time, Anthony Pettis the time before that, all since May. And when Myles got into it, I was even talking to him before, I think, the Anthony Pettis fight. Or was it? I didn't know it was after it. But a big question around Myles was, would he be able to... let's say he was fighting in the playoffs this week, and then he was in the final. That'd be 4 fights in the space of 8 or 9 months or whatever it is, even less. And would he be able to kind of hold up to that, I suppose? Because before that Pettis fight, that was in May of this year, he hadn't fought since February 2019 against Peter Queally when he won that fight. Obviously, the top win of his career to date. And his injuries and other things as well. But Myles has answered all those questions, I think, and he's gone back. Now, he's lost both fights, and the Pettis one was pretty convincing. He made a very bad mistake to start off the fight, ended up on bottom, and Pettis ended up choking him. But Jeremy Stephens, that was a split decision loss, and I think most people actually had that fight for Myles Price. I had it for him. Okay, call me a bit biased because I'm Irish, but I think if you look at the betting odds, just as that fight was in, and I think it was like minus 500 or something. Very close fight. I'm not saying it was a robbery or anything like that, but I scored it for Myles. I think most people actually scored that fight for Myles as well. So he could easily be 1-1, with a win over Jeremy Stephens coming out of this. And now he's fighting Marcin Held. If he beats Marcin Held as well, that's a very good run that he's on here, despite what it looks like maybe on paper. For Held, it hasn't been the best year, if we're being honest. He beat Nathan Schultz at the start of the year, beat Nathan Schultz last year, lost to Nathan Schultz this year, and lost to Aubin Mercier this year as well, both by unanimous decision. It's always bad as well when you've beaten a guy already and then you lose to him. And I think it's a very interesting one, because there's a lot of talk now in PFL about kind of, you win, you'll get another chance, you lose, and you're kind of gone home. For Marcin Held, the guy who's been there now, has been there for 2 years. He is a lad as well who fought in ACB, ASA, fought in the UFC, fought in Bellator, obviously now in the PFL and loads of other places as well. I think he's the type of guy who's kind of happy, maybe. He might be even happier to be out of PFL and fighting somewhere else. You get lots of opportunities in Eastern Europe and stuff as well. But I'm very interested to see where he goes and what he does after this, win or lose. It's an interesting fight though. Myles Price, I suppose, he showed his wrestling chops in that fight with Jeremy Stephens, but he also showed he's good on the feet. And I think they're very similar type of fighters in that they're well-rounded with maybe no massive advantage in either area. Now, Marcin Held is a very, very good submission artist, and I think if he gets in dominant positions on the ground against anyone, not just Myles Price, I think he'd probably be favoured to get the submission. But Myles has shown if he gets on top of anyone, he can dominate that position and land lots of shots. He's probably favoured to win rounds there with one takedown and maybe a bit of control. So a very, very interesting fight. I'd be a bit biased here with my Irish flag up, and I'll pick Myles Price to win this one, because he kind of due one of these wins. The performance against Pettis was not great. He showed glimpses in that. In the performance against Stephens, it didn't start great, but it got better and better. And if he comes in here and fights better again, I think he might have enough. You know, he might have to know if he can get a couple of takedowns, if he can do well on the feet, you know, he might have enough here against Held, who mightn't be 100% his head in the game, whereas Myles Price, he's probably thinking, you know, I win this fight, I'm going to get back next year, and it's another massive opportunity. So it's all to play for here, I think, for Myles Price, and it's interesting. He'll probably be a big underdog in here, but, you know, Myles Price is the type of guy who will win a big underdog fight at some stage, so maybe this is the one. We'll move on and we'll talk about the other fights here in a second, but I'll give you my picks, I suppose, for the other ones, and then we will go up and we'll talk about the playoff fights. I'll go for Price, I'll go for Boukichou. I'll probably go for Simeon, Powell. Definitely go for Ditcheva to win there as well. I'll go for Odunjo, maybe, to win. I'll go for Taleb, and I will also go for Louie Sutherland to win there as well. Right, let's talk about the 4 playoff fights, and my favourite fighter in the PFL is fighting here, and that's Ryoji Kudo at featherweight. He's fighting Bubba Jenkins, and if you haven't seen Kudo fight, he knocked out Alejandro Flores. If anyone who watches the betting show will know, I gave him to win that fight. Just a great knockout. He had a great performance against Brendan Loughnane as well. I don't think there's been a more unlucky loss in MMA this year than his loss against Brendan Loughnane. He almost knocked him down, almost knocked him out in the first round. Barely lost the second round, and then it went to a technical decision after what was a night poker, clash of heads or something like that in the third round. And what was it? A couple of minutes of the third round were scored, and Brendan Loughnane was just ahead there, so he just won the second, just won half the third, and ended up winning the fight, and Kudo lost because of that, even though he dominantly won the first. So maybe if we were in a place where 10-8s were better handed out, maybe he would have won, or he would have drawn that fight or whatever. But yeah, either way, look, Brendan Loughnane fought well and fought very well to come back from that. Even I think Brendan would probably agree with me when he says he was a little bit lucky with that one, and he would also agree with me, I think, and he has actually over on Twitter, that Kudo's a very, very good fighter. Really, really, really talented guy. He's a counter fighter, very fast, very powerful, good takedowns. The one issue he has here is he's a bit small. He's a bit small against everyone, but I think especially against Bubba Jenkins, who's a big, strong guy. I haven't heard, but I would guess he cuts a good bit of weight. You know, Jenkins a southpaw. He's a wrestler. He's out wrestled, you know, good guys like Lance in that division as well. He likes to jump in with his striking, which is a dangerous thing against a counter striker like Kudo, but it is effective. He looks smoother and smoother every time he's in there. You know, I was actually talking to someone recently about kind of wrestlers transition in overtime MMA, and you know, with the whole Bo Nickel thing last week, and everyone saying, I should be in the UFC, he's the next GSP, and I was like, well, you don't really know, do you? You know, maybe he will, or maybe he'll be the next Bubba Jenkins, who has had a good career, but he's not GSP, he's 18-5. And that can happen. I actually think, even though Bubba Jenkins is 18-5 now, 34 years of age, I think he's just finding himself as an MMA fighter right now. And I think he has just kind of developed his style. And he's looking better all the time, but he's also 34 now. And how long does he actually have left at that level? But anyway, that's, I suppose, a point for another day. Look, he lost last year. As I mentioned before, he out-wrestled Lance Palmer, but he lost last year to Chris Wade, who we'll be talking about in a second. He beat Kyle Bochniak this year, and Hinaldo Exum. You know, two favourable enough matchups there, especially the Bochniak one. So this will be, I think, his real test, first of all, this year. Now, it'll be interesting if it looks like a test here, to be honest, because a lot of people look at this and go, he's got the easy half of the draw. I personally don't think so. And even if he does win this, well, let's say he take Kudo down over and over and over, I think that'll be a great win. I don't think people understand how good Kudo actually is. And if this turns into a striker match, if this turns into Bubba Jenkins trying to come into the pocket and land strikes on Kudo, I think Kudo will win that fight. I really do. I think he's really powerful. He hits really hard. He is dangerous. And I'm picking Kudo. I'm picking him again. I really believe in his ability. I think he's really, really fantastic. I'd be interested to see the prices here. I wouldn't be surprised if he was a minus 400 or 500 here, honestly. Now, I think that's wrong. I think that's absolutely wrong, but I don't care. Plus 400 or 500. I'm picking him anyway. I'm without a shadow of a doubt. I'm picking him. We'll leave we'll talk about the other featherweight fight, and then we'll talk about the two women's lightweight fights to end it here. Chris Wade against Brendan Loughnane is the other two then. Look, we probably all know Chris Wade by now. Throws a lot of kicks, almost kicks more than he punches. That means a lot of time it turns into wrestling matchups. Not necessarily the case against Brendan Loughnane, but he's really strong. He's a good striker, I would say, who's willing to throw more than his opponents most of the time. Now, again, will that be the case against Brendan Loughnane? I think it's very interesting. 34 years of age. This is his 30th fight. Half of those have gone to a decision that he has won, and 7 more have gone to a decision that he has lost. So, only 7 of his 30 fights, 29 fights so far have gone to have finished inside the distance. That tells you a lot, I think, about Wade. Now, his last fight was one of them, I suppose, with a head kick and punches, so maybe there's something has changed there. But look, that was against Bosniak. He beat Lance Palmer before that, obviously lost in last year's tournament to Kabulov. He's beaten Bubba Jenkins, his wins over Aliyev and others like that as well, but he has lost to Nathan Schultz a couple of times. He has lost to Like Rabzabov. He has lost, back in the UFC to Rustam Kabulov, Islam Makachev. But all the names I mentioned there, you could say a lot of most of those lads, especially, the last couple, are wrestlers, and a wrestler Brendan Loughnane ain't. Now he can wrestle, there's no doubt about it, but Brendan likes to strike, Brendan likes to go out there and have a good, fun stand-up match. Now, as we saw in the Contender Series, if he needs a takedown to win a fight, he can absolutely get one. But this is a very interesting fight for me. I think Chris Wade will be trying to wrestle here. I think he'll be trying to get onto the legs of Loughnane early, take him down and win that fight on top. We saw that last year with Loughnane in the playoffs, that when Kabulov was able to get on top of him, he kind of struggled a bit. Now, I didn't think, when I say struggled, he struggled to kind of get back up. He didn't struggle in terms of landing loads or not landing himself and stuff. I actually thought he won that fight. It was a split decision. I thought, I wasn't surprised it was a split decision. I'm not saying, it was rightly a split decision. That's not how judging works. But I thought Loughnane landed the better. Kabulov did very, very little in that fight. Now, Loughnane has come back. He's had a tough fight, I mentioned, against Kudo. He's had a tough fight against Hussein as well. Was it his eye was closed up? It was, wasn't it? That fight could have been stopped, if we're being honest here. But one ended up winning a decision there. Now, is Loughnane 100% fully fit? I don't know. Is he 100% fully, in form? I don't think so either, to be honest. So this will be a massive win for him. This is a tough test. It really is a tough test. So I think he's going to have to fight well. I think he knows what Chris Wade is going to do here. I think Wade is going to wrestle him, or try to wrestle him, and Loughnane has to stop that first and foremost, and then win on the feed. Like Wade, as I said, he lets his strike and go. If Loughnane still has that kind of bad knee that he had in the first fight, didn't really show in the second fight, I suppose, but if he still has that bad knee and he's kicking that leg all the time, that could be trouble as well for Loughnane. But I'm going to pick Loughnane here. I might be showing my what did my friend used to call it, the North Atlantic Archipelago bias here. It's not the British Isles, it's the North Atlantic Archipelago. There you go. I'm picking Brendan Loughnane, but sure, I'll do it anyway. I think he will be able to stop a takedown. I think it'll be a close decision, and I think Loughnane will be a little bit better on the feet and win it there. Now, when I say a little bit better on the feet, I think he'll probably be a little bit better with his hands. And people are always giving out about leg kicks maybe not being scored enough. Maybe that'll be one of these fights where we see that as well here. But Loughnane can throw a few leg kicks as well. But this is probably, I think this is the closest in terms of matchup on this card. I think Kudo Jenkins, if Jenkins doesn't hold him down for 15 minutes, could be a better fight, but it's between, I think, probably the two of them. These featherweight fights, I'm really looking forward to them. I don't know who'll win either of them, to be honest. I really, really don't. So very interesting. Let's talk about the women's lightweight fight then. We have Elena Kolesnik against Larissa Pacheco. 7-4 Leshnik fighting out of Ukraine. Now, she gave a great speech and she had her flag and stuff after her last fight. She beat Vanessa Melo, beat Abigail Montes, who has a win over Clarissa Shields before that. But I suppose, if you look at her record, the loss before that was against Larissa Pacheco in the first round, who she's fighting here at the weekend. She's also, it was the fourth of 4 losses in a row. Lost to Pam Sorensen, Felicia Spencer over in Invicta, and then in the PFL to Taylor Guardado as well. Look, it's probably going to go like that as well. She's good hand. She can strike. Looks like she has power. 4 wins of her 7 have been by knockout. But Pacheco has looked absolutely brilliant this season. And, if Kayla Harrison wasn't there, she'd probably be a way out as the favourite. She's won 4 in a row now, one of which was Kaleshnik last year. She's beaten Gina Fabian this year. Destruction in less than 3 minutes. She has a win over Sarah Kaufman, Carla Rosa and others as well. Obviously was in the UFC back in the day, but she seems to have put on the weight better than most people, I think, to get up to 155, which is very, very tough to do. And look, I think she'll win here again. She knocked her out in the first round in 2021 around this time last year, maybe 13, 14 months ago. And I think that's what will happen again here, to be honest. I just think Pacheco is really fast and really powerful, and too fast and too powerful. I don't think the fight will necessarily hit the ground here. I think it's going to be a stand-up match, and I think Pacheco will win that all day. Don't have too much of a read on it. Apart from that, I just think she's the better fighter, and I think she will win it. The same could be said for the main event. I think we would probably all agree with that. Kayla Harrison against Martina Jindrova. Do you know what? Watching tape on Jindrova, I really like her as a fighter. And if she wasn't fighting Kayla Harrison, I would be thinking like, oh, this lady's very, very good. She's fighting out of ATT Zagreb, obviously out of the Czech Republic. 6 wins, 2 losses. Submitted once, decisioned once, 2 knockouts, 1 submission, 3 decision wins. But her hands are really good. I was looking at one of her fights and they said she's like 49 wins as a Muay Thai and kickboxing practitioner, and it shows. Do you know what? She looks a bit like Kayla Harrison as well. She has the bob in the hair, is that what it's called as well, similarly and things. But she strikes a lot better than her, I'll put it to you that way. It's very hard. There's very, very good hands. I was watching her Contender Series fight, PFL, Challenger Series fight against Jacqueline Calvilcante. She was very, very impressive in that. But also watched her 2 losses. She got scarf folded last November. So, God almighty, if she's getting scarf folded last November, she's now fighting Kayla Harrison. Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen there. I don't think that's going to end well, for being honest. But if she can keep this fight in the feet, she can cause massive trouble for Kayla Harrison. Keeping the fight on the feet against Kayla Harrison, though, is probably not going to happen, if we're being honest. And Kayla Harrison in her last few fights has kind of played with her prey a little bit, I think you would probably say it, and has practiced maybe a little bit on the feet. I don't think she'll be practicing in this fight against Jindrova. I don't think that's the sort of fight you practice with. I was watching one of her older fights. I think it was one of the fights she lost, and she fought at 68 kilos, which I believe is 149 pounds. So, okay, that's not 155 at lightweight, but it's not too far away. Some of the women in this division have fought at 125 or obviously 135, most of them. So she is, 5'8", as opposed to Kayla Harrison being 5'8" as well. So, as I said, she looks like her, similar build, similar size. Maybe not as good of an athlete. Obviously, we know with Kayla Harrison, definitely not as good of an athlete, but I think if the fight can send a feat, she has a chance. But no, we all know Kayla Harrison, 14-0, 6 KOs, 11 submissions, judo Olympian, gold medalist, all of that. She's brilliant. But she hasn't been as good maybe in the last while. Now, Kaylin Young, I think, is a very good fighter, but she came in short notice and she destructioned her. That's a new verb I've come up with. But she made tough work out of it against Marina Makicina before that, and Taylor Gordado as well. Went 9 minutes in that fight. But as I said, there was a little bit of playing with the parade there as well. Look, you're asking me for my pick here. It's obviously going to be Kayla Harrison. Here's a prediction. I think she'll get punched. I think Jindrova will connect with her. And Kayla Harrison will immediately probably push her against the cage, take her down. I could see an armbar maybe or something here. It'll probably be a head and arm choke as well, or a head and arm throw as well. Jindrova has been knocked out, or not taken down one of them before, and scarf holded, as I said. So yeah, that could happen here, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. So yeah, that's my pick for that one. So I'm going for Harrison, Lochnan, Pacheco, and Kudo in the playoff fights. But it should be a good night of fights, and it's interesting. Let me know who you're picking. Let me know who you're picking in the 4 playoff fights in the comment section below here on YouTube if you're listening. click subscribe. Go over to YouTube as well, click subscribe. If you just want to listen to it, it's the Sherdog Radio Network on all your podcast apps, and you'll be able to see the Sheehan Show here, obviously, Shilling and Duffy, and all the rest of the great shows from Sherdog as well. Shout out to John Branding and all the staff over at Sherdog. My name is Sean Sheehan from Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.